Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Gurudev, 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev. Nitai Go Premanandi. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parivajikacharya Stotraka Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhai Chanaravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Om Vishnupad Paramhamsa Parivajikacharya Stotraka Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki अनंत कोरि वैष्णव वृंद की नामाचार्य श्रील हरिदास ठाकुर की प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की वृंदावन धाम की मथुरा धाम की नवद्वीप धाम की गंगा माई की यमुना माई की भक्ति देवी की Yuga Dharma Harinam Sankirtan Yagya Ki Srila Prabhupada Translation Book Distribution Ki Srila Prabhupada Translation Prasadam Distribution Ki Nitai Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Vishnu. Hare Krishna. Thank you everyone. Welcome to this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam class. We are reading from Canto 4, Chapter 9, titled Dhruva Maharaj Returns Home. Text 11. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Canto 4, Chapter 9, Text 11. Bhakti muhu pravahatam tvai me prashango. Bhuyadan ananta mahatam amalashayanam. Yenanjaso banamuru vyasanam bhavadivim. Nishe bhavat guna katamrita panamataha. Bhakti muhu pravahatam tvai me prashango. Bhuyadananda mahatam amalashayanam. Yenanjaso banamuru vyashanam bhavadivim. Nishe bhavat guna katamrita panamataha. Bhakti muhu pravahatam tvai me prashango. Bhuyadananda mahatam amalashayanam. Yenanjasol banamuru vyashanam bhavadivim. Nishe bhavat guna katamrita panamataha. Word for word translation. Bhaktim, devotional service. Muhu, constantly. Pravahatam, of those who perform. Tvai, unto you. Me, my. Prasangaha, intimate association. Bhuyat, may it become. Ananta, O unlimited. Mahatam, of the great devotees. Amala Ashayanam, whose hearts are freed from material contamination. Yena, by which. Anjasa, easily. Olbanam, terrible. Uru, great. Vyasanam, full of dangers. Bhavabdhim, the ocean of material existence. Neshye, I shall cross. Bhavat, your. Guna, transcendental qualities. Katha, pastimes. Amrita, nectar, eternal. Pana, by drinking. Mataha, mad. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Abhay Chan Aravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki. Translation. Dhruva Maharaj continued, O unlimited Lord, kindly bless me so that I may associate with great devotees who engage in your transcendental loving service constantly, as the waves of a river constantly flow. Such transcendental devotees are completely situated in an uncontaminated state of life. By the process of devotional service, I shall surely be able to cross the nescient ocean of material existence, which is filled with the waves of blazing fire-like dangers. It'll be very easy for me, for I am becoming mad, to hear about your transcendental qualities and pastimes, which are eternally existent. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The significant point in Dhruva Maharaj's statement is that he wanted the association of pure devotees. Transcendental devotional service cannot be complete and cannot be relishable without the association of devotees. We have therefore established the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. Anyone who is trying to be aloof from this Krishna Conscious Society and yet engage in Krishna consciousness is living in a great hallucination, for this is not possible. From this statement by Dhruva Maharaj, it is clear that unless one is associated with devotees, his devotional service does not mature. It does not become distinct from material activities. The Lord says, Satam prasanga mama mirya samvito bhavanti rit karma rasayana. Bhagavatam 3, Canto 3, Chapter 25, verse 25. Only in the association of pure devotees can the words of Lord Krishna be fully potent and relishable to the heart and ear. Dhruva Maharaj explicitly wanted the association of devotees. That association in devotional activities is just like the waves of an incessantly flowing river. In our Krishna Consciousness Society, we have full engagement 24 hours a day. Every moment of our time is always busily engaged in the service of the Lord. That is called the incessant flow of devotional service. A Mayavadi philosopher may question us, you may be very happy in the association of devotees, but what is your plan for crossing the ocean of material existence? Dhruva Maharaj's answer is that it is not very difficult. He clearly says that this ocean can be crossed very easily if one simply becomes mad to hear the glories of the Lord. Bhavat Guna Katha. For anyone who persistently engages in hearing the topics of the Lord from Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita, and who is actually addicted to this process, just as one becomes addicted to intoxicants, it is very easy to cross the nescience of material existence. The ocean of material nescience is compared to a blazing fire. But to a devotee, this blazing fire is insignificant because he is completely absorbed in devotional service. Although the material world is blazing fire, to a devotee it appears full of pleasure. Vishwam Purna Sukhayate. The purport of the statement by Dhruva Maharaj is that devotional service in the association of devotees is the cause of the development of further devotional service. By devotional service, only one is elevated to the transcendental planet Goloka Vrindavan, and there also there is only devotional service. For the activities of devotional service, both in this world and the spiritual world, are one and the same. Devotional service does not change. The example of a mango can be given here. If one gets an unripe mango, it is still a mango. And when it is ripe, it remains the same mango, but it has become more tasteful and relishable. Similarly, there is devotional service performed according to the direction of the spiritual master and the injunctions and regulated principles of Shastra, and this devotional service in the spiritual world rendered directly in the association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But they are both the same, there is no change. The difference is that one stage is unripe and the other is ripe and more relishable. It is possible to mature in devotional service only in the association of devotees. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilidam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurun Shri Yuta Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Cha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Raghuna Shri Vishakan Vitam Cha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Dapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpa Tirubhascha Kripa Sindhu Bhaivacha Patitanam Pavnebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda He Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Read the translation again. Canto 4, Chapter 9, verse 11. Dhruva Maharaj continued, O unlimited Lord, kindly bless me so that I may associate with great devotees who engage in a transcendental loving service constantly, as the waves of a river constantly flow. Such transcendental devotees are completely situated in an uncontaminated state of life. By the process of devotional service, I shall surely be able to cross the nescient ocean of material existence, which is filled with the waves of blazing fire-like dangers. It will be very easy for me, for I am becoming mad, to hear about your transcendental qualities and pastime, which are eternally existent. So in this verse, just the background of what we've read today, or heard today. Dhruva Maharaj, at the end of the last chapter and beginning of this chapter, the Lord appears Dhruva Maharaj is meditating on the Lord, and the Lord appears and he touches his conch shell to Dhruva's forehead, and Dhruva Maharaj is then surcharged, or is basically he feels now he's able to glorify the Lord with his prayers. And what the section that we're reading, actually Dhruva Stuti, prayers by Dhruva Maharaj, it goes all the way to verse number 17. And if you read through these, if you hear these prayers and if you meditate on them, we find a similar pattern between this and the prayers by Prahlad Maharaj. In the verse today, Dhruva Maharaj is pleading, requesting the Lord that for the association of devotees. And which devotee is Dhruva Maharaj most attached to? Narada Muni. So Narada Muni blessed Dhruva Maharaj, and he's grateful to Narada Muni for his guidance, and he's praying for the association of Mahatmas. So Srila Prabhupada makes a very pertinent point throughout the purport, and in the end he's saying it is possible to mature in devotional service only in the association of devotees. So once there was a devotee, or during Srila Prabhupada's manifest presence, there was a devotee who had actually, due to some circumstances, had left the association. And after a while, when Srila Prabhupada was visiting that city, or that town, this devotee came to, just felt like he wanted to offer obeisances and somehow, get Srila Prabhupada's darshan. And the devotees then organized a darshan for this devotee to have with Srila Prabhupada. And the very moment that this devotee was done offering obeisance, Srila Prabhupada said, "Why are you not chanting?" And the devotee said, he gave so many reasons, and then Srila Prabhupada encouraged him. And the devotee that was there, who was witnessing this exchange, said that there were many mystical reasons for Srila Prabhupada to have known that this devotee was not chanting. But the one reason how Srila Prabhupada came to know of it was that because this devotee was not in the association of devotees. So in the association of devotees, devotional service becomes easy, becomes relishable, and it becomes more natural. So for those of us that, here in the association of such wonderful devotees here, when we go to the Dham, we feel enlivened by the potency of the Dham and the Vaishnavas there, and that actually rubs off on us, and that's what actually carries us in our devotional life. So there are so many factors that actually help us mature in our devotional service. Obviously, the sum and substance is the association of devotees. In Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, verse number 2, Rajavidya Rajaguhyam Pavitram idamuttamam patikshagam namam susukham kartam avyayam. It's, relishable, you get direct perception of the self. And after saying that, the very next verse, Krishna says, "Those who are not faithful cannot obtain me." And Srila Prabhupada starts off that purport by saying, faith is created in the association of devotees. So the devotees give us faith by their own character, by their own. Devotion is not only manifested on their lips, but in their lives. They mold their lives in a way that devotional service becomes the most, the central aspect of their lives. A lot of us, especially, in the neophyte stage, we take to devotional service as primarily a 9-to-5 activity, just in following the ritual and just saying, this is my, this is the allocation of my time for Krishna, and then everything else just becomes, I try to fit everything around. But as we mature, or through the guidance of a spiritual master and the Vaishnavas, then that initially we only see the temple or just a small sangha of devotees as the arena of worship, but then gradually as it expands, we see the entire world as an opportunity of service to Krishna. there's no difference between our inner selves and our outer selves. There was once a devotee who basically, I believe it was Burijan Prabhu, who he had read Srila Prabhupada's books, and somehow, from his prior experience, he understood that the author of a book is a separate character to the author, in real life. So, for example, if I may write a book, or if I may say something, if something published about me, there's always another side to me which the book or the writings don't project upon. But when he met Srila Prabhupada, he said there was no difference between the person, book, and this person whom he was seeing. So, what I'm trying to get to is that, or we see devotees, especially Bhagavad Gita 9.14, Satatam Kirtayanto Mam, Yatantacha Dridarvataha, Namashyantam Chumam Bhaktya. Now, what's the last bit? Yeah. So, always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, these souls perpetually worship me with devotion. So these great souls, these Mahatmas, and Srila Prabhupada describes faith in that purport to 9.3. Faith is that which only by practice of Krishna consciousness will I attain all perfection. In the 7th canto, Prahlad Maharaj says, a similar prayer, and then it's described in the purport too, that in the association of devotees who are fully convinced that Krishna is the only objective in our lives, in that association, one gets that faith. So, surprisingly, Hiranyakashipu says a similar statement in a different context in the 7th canto. He's saying our mind is like a crystal. It reflects what's most closest to it. So when we associate with sadhus, their qualities actually rub on us. So when I was saying, what is it that what do we do when no one is watching? When we're in the association of devotees, but then when no one is watching, what desires do we give into? And that's basically, these Mahatmas, these Dridarvatas, those who are actually determined, they fill their day, or they fill their lives in such a way, they mold their lives in such a way, as this past Saturday, Ganesham Prabhu, when he was doing the intro to the Bhagavatam, he said the associates of Lord Chaitanya live a life which is imbued in a culture of hearing and chanting. That living a life of hearing and chanting, it involves sacrifice, it involves determination, and most importantly, the association of devotees. So as Srila Prabhupada writes, it's possible to mature in devotional service only in the association of devotees. And without that, it's simply hallucination. Unlike the other forms of yoga, as in Jnana or Ashtanga yoga, where one relies a lot on their own self, but in Bhakti, we actually are dependent on the mercy of the Lord, actually the mercy of the devotees of the Lord. Now, association with the devotees of the Lord, as we are all trying to practice, described in the Nectar of Instruction, verse number 4. Tadati pratiginnati goyam akyati prichati bhunkte bujayate cheva. What's this first bit? Shadavitim priti lakshanam. By offering gifts, receiving gifts, revealing one's mind in confidence, inquiring confidentially, offering prasad, receiving prasadam. In that association, we actually, Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, by practicing these 6 loving exchanges, what does it do to one's devotion service? It's written in the purport. Nourishes. It nourishes our devotional life. Recently, I was there was a retreat held in London. It's called the Rise Retreat. There were many esteemed, devotees there, Maharajas, and Sachinandan Swami, Grace Gauranga Prabhu, Grace Swayam Bhagavan Keshava Maharaj. So Sachinandan Maharaj was facilitating this workshop, which is called Relationship Makers and Breakers. So if any of you are keen on watching it, that's what the title is called. And in that, he was describing, he was expanding on this verse, that we just heard from the Nectar of Instruction. And then His Holiness Swami Bhagavan Keshav Maharaj came and gave a very interesting reflection, which he had heard from some other devotee. And he was saying that these 6 exchanges, they appear in the Nectar of Instruction, but sometimes we may question, it's so random. Offering gifts, receiving gifts, revealing one's mind in confidence, inquiring confidentially, giving prasad, offering prasad. How do these actually do so? And he was saying that he had heard from one devotee, and it actually put a different perspective to things. The first 2, giving gifts and receiving gifts, signify loving people. And we'll expand on this in a bit. The next 2, inquiring confidentially and revealing one's mind in confidence, signifies understanding people. And the last 2, giving prasad, offering prasad, it basically signifies helping people. Now the first 2, giving gifts, receiving gifts, in any relationship, when we start off with, we express our love by giving gifts, receiving gifts. These both need to happen. Or expressing your love in tangible ways for the other person. And love, like I said, it may be that, giving gifts or tangible gifts, but it also means offering encouragement, offering support, receiving that. These are also ways of extending appreciation for the other person. So that is also a gift. Next 2, revealing one mind, inquiring confidentially, understanding people. And that at times we are quite, we face challenges because, everyone's cut differently, everyone thinks differently. And it takes time, to fully accept someone and for someone else to accept, for who we are and how do we grow from it. There are so many books, there are so many seminars that are actually given on, the art of communication. And, we somehow don't understand, we have to learn to grow to understand the other person. And Swami Bhagavan Keshav Maharaj was saying that His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj said, for any emotion that someone expresses, there's an inner story that person is the reason why the person is acting in that way. And Sachinanda Maharaj given a funny example. And he was saying there was, it was actually a real example, so he wasn't making it up. He was sharing that there was a therapist or maybe a teacher who was trying to teach the child on how to count, on how to do addition and subtraction. So he started off with, because, in whatever ways, innovative ways that we try to help. And he said, okay, so addition, let's do addition here. 2 oranges and 3 oranges. How many is it? And he said, 2 oranges, 3 oranges, how many is it? He said, 5. Good. 2 apples and 1 apple. How many? 4. He said, okay. Let's try again. 2 apples, 1 apple and 2 apples. How many is it? He said, 4. He said, okay, let's try one more time. 1 apple and 2 apples. How many is it? 4. And he said, the child, what's happening? Because 1 is in my bag. He had an apple in his bag, which he wasn't, the person, the teacher didn't know. Like, oh, now I understood why. He kept saying 4 apples because there was an apple in his bag. So 1 plus 1 plus 2 makes it 4. So a lot of times when people, when we are trying to understand people, there's so much to their personality, so much to their inner psyche that, it just takes time to uncover and to understand, and then we finally, when we understand, like, oh, okay, then let's try to work from there. Then the last two, giving prasad, offering prasad, is helping people. Deeper meaning is that we help people for them to build their lives, assisting them in whatever they need. And and if you really see in the early days, Srila Prabhupada would, open the doors to the hippies, and they were actually absolutely had no culture. But what did he most attract them by? He was personally cooking for these hippies, and it's actually written in the Lilamrita. In the first few days, Srila Prabhupada would actually do everything, go buy vegetables, chop, clean, cook, wash, and sometimes, they would just leave their plates and just go, and Srila Prabhupada would have to, to pick it up and clean. So, he actually tolerated so much of that, went through so much of sacrifices for this, to give a taste of prasad to these hippies, and gradually, they understood that, this person is sacrificing so much for us. We rather, clean and do other things, and that's when. So these 6 loving exchanges, they actually bring us closer. The relationships grow more fonder, and we are able to appreciate and actually relish Krishna Katha. Now, what do these sadhus actually give? Right? We discussed faith is one of, faith is obtained in the association of devotees, and determination. There's so many obstacles that we all actually go through in our day-to-day lives. Just yesterday, I believe there was a video that was shared on WhatsApp by, I believe it was Ganesham Prabhu, but maybe he was resharing it from someone else. It was a video done on a summary of Madhurya Kadambini by His Grace Shubham Prabhu. A 90-minute video, please watch it. And it's Prabhu has described, the 5 aspects of Madhurya Kadambini in such a succinct and practical way that we are able to understand this piece of literature by Vishma Chakravarti Thakur. And he describes the 5 obstacles that we go through. First one being laziness. At times during japa, or when we're in kirtan, or where we in, it's just that we are inattentive, but we're lazy. And most important, just because priority, devotional service is not a priority to us at that time of the day. And it may be, for some other factors too, which can be understood. Then after laziness is actually distraction. So sometimes we'll be chanting, we'll be, hearing a class, we'll be engaged in some activity, but our mind is so distracted. We just get drawn to something else, and it just happens. That's the nature of our mind, to just pull us back into the material conditioning. Now, we overcome laziness, we overcome distraction, but then the next stage is indifference. We feel indifferent just because we don't feel that sense of inspiration, because of circumstances that are actually preventing us from, fully absorbing ourselves in Krishna consciousness or in devotional service. Now we overcome laziness. We're no longer distracted, and we actually, our external environment is helpful to us to practice bhakti. What brings us down is fault finding. We look at a devotee, we look at this. His Holiness Devamrita Maharaj nicely puts it, like when we first come in the association of devotees, we feel they're all demigods. Some, beings who just are a blessing in our lives. And later on we say, it's just a nuisance. How am I, how should I get rid of myself, what have I gotten myself into? So because of our past conditioning, we look at faults and we just magnify them to the greatest degree. Finally, we may be able to overcome all of these, but then there'll be some material sense pleasure, which, some vasana, as it's described um, in the Yoga Sutras, some impression, or a friend of ours would just say, "What are you doing today? Why don't you come with me? Let's go and whatever maybe our hobbies or our interests prior to taking up Krishna consciousness seriously, we may just feel tempted to just go and indulge in that." So these Mahatmas that describe in 9:14, always chanting my glories, always endeavoring with determination, these personalities are most dear to Krishna. So when we come in touch with such devotees, that actually transforms us. We go from being unripe to ripe. In the Chaitanya Bhagavad, there's a story of Jivandas Thakur, if you've heard of it. The Jivandas Thakur was actually a very pious person, and he had come to Kashi Vishwanath to worship the deity of Lord Shiva, because he was growing old and he just said, I have some desires that I'd like to fulfill. I'd like to get a little rich. So he goes to this deity and he prays, and then later on Lord Shiva appears to him and he says, actually what you want is, if you go to this village, you'll see Rupa Goswami there, and he has what you need. So because he's simple hearted, he goes and he sees Rupa Goswami there in a loincloth, and he tells Rupa Goswami, I'm in need of money, please give me some, or please help me. He's like, I myself am a renunciant, how can I help you? Then Rupa Goswami realizes that he has a stone that once in his travels he had gotten it. He didn't really know what that could be used for, but maybe he said someone could actually utilize it. So he keeps it, or he has it stored somewhere, and he tells this Jivandas Thakur, okay, you go and take this stone, and this will actually fulfill all your desires. So he points him to where the stone is at, and it's actually in a pile of garbage. And the very moment that he actually goes to pick up this, he says, anything you touch this stone to will turn into gold. So the moment he takes the stone, he's like, if this is something so precious, why has Rupa Goswami kept it in a pile of trash? That means that he must be having something more valuable. He goes to Rupa Goswami, and Rupa Goswami tells him, first go and throw the stone away. And when he goes and throws it, then he initiates, he gives him the Maha Mantra, and then he blesses him. So the sadhu can actually cut through our layers of ego, our layers of false ego, and actually give us a taste of what they are actually relishing. Radha Vinod Maharaj, I was reading, gave a very beautiful analogy. He was quoting this pastime in which Ramanujacharya speaks to Anantacharya, and he says a Vaishnava is like salt, quoting humility as the example. And like a salt, when it goes into any preparation, if it's perfectly salted, it gives the taste and the flavor of the entire dish. So you wouldn't, no one would actually eat a preparation and say, oh, the salt is good. They'll actually say, oh, the paneer is good, or the vegetables are like, wow, I'm actually able to experience the flavor of all of it. So even though the Vaishnava is serving and giving pleasure to Krishna and the devotees, he or she never comes to claim the credit. So, and on the flip side, what happens when something is too salty? It just ruins the taste of things. So due to our false ego, if we just want to be there to take the credit for things, then it just ruins the whole preparation. And that at times just, more than that temporary benefit, or that pratishtha, that fame, or that adoration, it actually doesn't do us much good. So in the association of devotees, those who are selfless, those who are who have a taste, a ruchi, and those who actually have molded their lives in the association of those, we actually feel inspired. In so many instances, so many devotees have actually expressed that how they felt when they first saw Srila Prabhupada, just coming in that association. There's a famous story of Amaraji, who it was, I mean, as it's described, I think it's in Hari Shoi Prabhu's diaries, that there was Maraji on a plane, and somehow the devotees had some prasadam for Srila Prabhupada, and Srila Prabhupada was just eating, his prasad, and at the end, she was being very courteous by offering to reheat it. So later on, this Maraji got Prabhupada's remnants, and then many, many years later, when some book distributors were traveling, I believe in Brazil or somewhere, they knocked on someone's door, and then they open up, and there's Maraji there. She has an altar, she has a Namahata, and she says, she recounts to when that exchange was happened many years ago. So that's the potency of a pure devotee. So here, Dhruva Maharaj is wanting that association, or is praying for that association of devotees such as Narada Muni, who constantly travel because they carry Krishna in their hearts. That that bhakti shakti gets when it. An important point, as I was earlier, there was a copy of Manashiksha written by Urmila Maharaji, and then she was describing it, and in that, I think Sachinandan Maharaj writes that when we are in trouble, we call out to the Vaishnavas. He says we don't call out to Krishna, but we call out to the Vaishnavas, because the example that he gives is that in the third canto of the Bhagavatam, Kapila Dev says of two kinds of association with the opposite sex, or association with those who are addicted to, association with the opposite sex, which is more dangerous, the latter. Because those who actually are always greedy for their association with the opposite sex, that can actually, influence us much more. That has a, so we call out to the Vaishnavas who are free from pretension, who are selfless, and who most importantly are actually giving, are very compassionate to us. So Vaishnava, as we always pray, Vancha kalpatirubhascha kripa sindhubhayevacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So we'll be reading tomorrow again the same theme, that what's the symptom of these exalted personalities, these pure-hearted devotees. And then gradually moving on, Dhruva Maharaj is actually expressing his lamentation on what his desires were, and he's praying to be free from that desire. And in a way, this desire to be freed from his desire to actually have a greater kingdom is furthermore glorified than him in the previous chapter, how he was able to control his mind and senses and arrest the Lord in his heart. Because to give up these is a far greater accomplishment than to control the universe. So I'll end here. I think we've run out of time. Maybe if someone has a question or a comment or something. Now, if you see both Prahlad Maharaj and Dhruva Maharaj, even though in the next verse, which I won't get into, but the sum and substance of that is that these pure-hearted souls, they're not attached to the material relationships. They're able to give up that for a higher taste. What did these two end up doing? Dhruva Maharaj ended up getting, having to rule a kingdom. So did Prahlad Maharaj, right? So, in a sense, they didn't follow in that particular footstep of Narada Muni being renunciate. So what did they actually, whose association did they get? They are grateful. Dhruva Maharaj, if you see that, the qualities of these great devotees is that their hearts are filled with gratitude, their lives are steeped in devotion, so they follow the instructions. So association with these devotees is following of the instructions, and they follow the instructions. So that's how they are able to overcome or be, actually they appear in the pages of the Bhagavatam just for that one reason, that they are fully devoted and their lives are glorious because of surrender to their spiritual master and the instructions. two things here. One is giving association to those who are not as elevated, or somehow the other. Another, firstly, we have to be able to discriminate. Yeah, that intelligence Krishna gives in the heart, or through the guidance of Vaishnavas. So, who is it that by giving my association to, that I can, lift them a little, bring them up a little. So, using that discrimination or helps through the words of Guru and Shastra. And that's why sometimes it is said, I'm not sure if, I heard it here itself in Sri Sri Radha Gopinath Mandir, that a lot of times when we go out in the world, we try to be grounded in our own association. For example, if sometimes some devotees go out in book distribution, they go out in pairs and not alone. Or sometimes when we go for any sort of, now dealing with family members, that's a whole nother, topic as such. But we be compassionate in the sense we are, again, understanding people. Whereas, how to apply that, that's a science in itself. So we try to understand what their needs are, how to best, marry that with an element of Krishna consciousness. Sometimes, a lot of times, what works is just taking them some prasadam, or whatever is, you can. I'm pretty sure someone will tell you what they like the most, and do that. But the best that you can give someone is your time. But then that also has to be evaluated. How much time we give, because sometimes that just, it may be people take us for granted, and we end up being, rather than us giving association, we just take in that, and then that becomes a bit disproportionate. Second thing was sadhus. Serving sadhus, most importantly, hearing from them. There's one story that I'll just say, and I'll end with that. Shruta Kirti Prabhu writes in his diaries that he would, because he was Srila Prabhupada's personal secretary, he would travel with Srila Prabhupada, and wherever he would go, to any airport, devotees would be so enthusiastically chanting, crying, in the airports. It'd just be so overwhelming for Shruta Kirti Prabhu. He's like, he wouldn't feel the same symptoms that, as these devotees were feeling, and he would just, observe it, and time after time he would just see these devotees just come, and they just like fall like a rod, in front of Srila Prabhupada, and just be like, filled with tears and all sort of ecstatic emotions. And once, when he had the opportunity, he asked Srila Prabhupada, these devotees are so enthusiastic to receive you, they just, fully surrendered to you, and look at me, I don't feel that same way. And Srila Prabhupada didn't say anything at that time. Later on, when Srila Prabhupada was, I think he was massaging Srila Prabhupada after he was done, and he asked Shruta Kirti Prabhu, do you like serving me? He said, yes, Prabhupada, I do love serving you. He like, then that's service, then you love serving me, and these people are dancing and they're expressing their appreciation, or their form of worship, just by honoring me, hearing out my instructions and following them. You're also performing service to me, and that's love. So performing some service for them, sometimes it just, maybe, we just ask a sadhu, just, in what way can I help you? What little service that we can do, and that'll, like, we see the example of Narada Muni in the first canto. What is he doing? Eating some remnants that are left by, he would serve the traveling mendicants, and then would serve them, and that's how he actually got a taste. So by serving them, again, the directive is given. By associating with those great souls, the doors are wide open. So, yes, Prabhu. I was reading in Mana Shiksha, again, the association of great devotees. Just one example that, or I mean, how this conversation went on, because I myself asked that, because a lot of times I may say, okay, pure devotees, and then because of my conditioned mind, I may see someone, they're false, and I'm like, I don't want to associate with them. And actually, this point is mentioned in there, is that these Babajis and these personalities, which great devotee do they worship? Govardhan. They're worshipping Govardhan. So Govardhan Srila. So they are actually associating with Govardhan, who is the topmost of all devotees. And then it goes on to describe how how exactly are they carrying out that service. So Govardhan is through them. Yeah. Answer. Yes. In this past week, Ganesham Prabhu, when he was doing the Bhagavatam summary or the introduction, someone asked him the same question too, that why are we following, if Bhagavatam is, rejecting all cheating religion and bringing us to the highest level, but the first two verses of the Bhagavatam actually signify, a mode of awe and reverence. And he said that the gopis of Vrindavan, even though they're in Madhurya Rasa, but they're actually serving Krishna. They never take Krishna for granted. They're actually wanting to be menial servants of Krishna. So we see that even, in their goal is never to take Krishna for granted and never to aspire for direct association with Krishna. They're wanting to assist Radharani and Krishna, and actually if you see in their pastimes, they are actually assisting others who are actually assisting the divine couple. So they never, even though they're in the Madhurya Rasa, they're in the topmost plane, but still their mood is, of Dasi Rasa, and they'll sometimes when they say joking words or speak in a sarcastic tone to Krishna, that is just to give Krishna pleasure. But again, in their mood, they never. The problem is that when we want that direct association, or even in our relationships, we tend to take the other person for granted. But that's not the case with these Gopas and Gopis. Thank you, everyone. We'll end here. Grantra Srimad Bhagavatam ki Srila Prabhupada ki Nitai Gaur Premanande Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki